Good evening. Welcome to Climate Politics here on KFCF 88.1 FM in Fresno. I am your host, Lars Maischak, coming to you as I have been for the past couple of months from Bremen in Germany, where I am weathering the political climate that has made it impossible for me to live in the United States. We're going to talk about fascism today once more, because we still have to talk about it. Let's all look forward to the day when we can say that this is truly all behind us. But so far, I don't quite see that light at the end of the tunnel, or rather, it still appears to be more oncoming traffic on that single track line coming into the tunnel. I've never thought of myself as a pessimist so much as somebody who keenly and without blinders observes the world, then compares what I see to what I know professionally as a historian, knowing how this matches up to previous times in history when the world was coming apart at the seams and when the ruling class, bourgeoisie, the owners of capital, were taking the wrecking ball to all that is holding the world together for common people, putting the axe to the very root of the existence of most of the regular population of this planet. They will continue to do that until they are stopped. Will they? That is the big question that we're asking. And it's not just a question of halting or at least making us more resilient for the collapse of the climate. It is also a question of whether what we need to do in response to this almost by now inevitable collapse, whether the response to that is going to be democratic, cooperative, egalitarian, and lawful, or whether it is going to be authoritarian, violent, and brutal. The latter option, fascism, barbarism, is not really an option. Inhumanity will not save this world. It will not save humanity from the climate catastrophe or anything else, any imaginary threat like immigration, for instance. So our response to these challenges that are global and affect all humanity equally must be democratic, must be based on the assumption that we're all in this together and that we all have an equal stake as members of our species in our well-being and survival. In other words, the alternative to barbarism now, as 100 years ago, when Rosa Luxemburg first used this phrase, the alternative to barbarism is socialism. There is no other alternative. There is no way to fix this within the confines of the capitalist system that has got us to this point. So even if we manage to push the clock back by a few minutes to before fascism time, it's just going to keep ticking its way past the next 1933 before you know it. But first, let's listen to some music.
You the one being chosen, play the part like Moses, keep it fresh like roses.
Looks so good, yeah, looks so sweet. Looking good enough to eat. Coldest with the kiss, so he call me ice cream. Catch me in the fridge, right where the ice be. Looks so good, yeah, looks so sweet. Baby, you deserve a treat. Diamonds on my wrist, so he call me ice cream. You could double dip, cause I know you like me. Ice cream, chillin', chillin', ice cream, chillin'. Ice cream, chillin', chillin', ice cream, chillin'. I know that my heart can be so cold, but I'm sweet for you, come put me in a cone. You're the only touch, yeah, to get me melting. He's my favorite, always got chillin', chillin', ice cream, chillin', ice cream, chillin', chillin', ice cream.
Chillin' like a villain, yeah, rah, rah, rah. 미친 듯한 속도 in my life, rah. 너무 빨라, 너는 되게 원한다면 그냥 지름 millies, 매일 버릇 한여름 손목에 얼음. Keep it moving like my Lisa, think to fly, but where you visa? Mona Lisa, kinda Lisa, needs an ice cream and a treat. Keep it moving like my Lisa, think to fly, but where you visa? Mona Lisa, kinda Lisa, needs an ice cream and a treat.
Ice cream killer. Ice cream.
That was Blackpink featuring Selena Gomez, Ice Cream. You might ask, why are we suddenly listening to K-pop in this show? To which I can only say, well, this show is coming to you from Europe. Be glad you're not listening to techno. One thing I want to talk about is I've been spending some time reading commentaries on social media and in the newspapers. People talk about the horrors of Trump brand fascism. Liberals and the left alike are horrified by the ongoing ethnic cleansing. But there's a specific way in which liberals think about fascism in this country, about Trump being in charge and committing all these crimes against humanity. That shows me that these liberals are a group of people who still don't get what they're dealing with. And if you don't know what you're dealing with, you're also not going to be able to really do anything about it. So the analysis of what you're up against is an essential part of being able to mount effective resistance against fascism, as well as, if ever you get into a position to do so, to roll it back, to hold people accountable. One of the most striking things in terms of this way that liberals think that I've read in recent days and weeks is when people say we wouldn't be in this situation if not for those 77 million Trump voters. They bear moral responsibility. They are culpable. They should be held accountable for enabling this amoral administration to come into power. Presumed child rapist was engaged in all kinds of fraud and grift or graft while he is in office, who is wrecking international relations, who is trampling the Constitution, and who is visiting violence and destruction on American cities, all in the name of making America great, wealthy, and possibly white again. So I get it why you would feel that way as a liberal, why you would feel that if these millions of people had not voted for Trump, we wouldn't be in that situation. So therefore, it is they who you direct your anger against. But there are multiple things wrong with that approach. And the moment you go there and the moment you say anything where you question this account, if you do that in public, if you do it online and in social media, you don't get far, because immediately the liberal who just told you it's the 77 million will say, oh, so you think they should not be held accountable? Well, isn't that how the Nazis were treated afterwards? Do you think they should just be able to sit back and say, well, we didn't know any better, or we were just following orders, or it's a free country? That's what happens if you think exclusively in these moralistic terms. And I'm not looking here to find any explanation that serves as an excuse for why these voters are not at fault. No, I think that the question of fault and to seek it at the voters jumps far too short for an explanation. First of all, if you think that it's the voters who set the agenda of politics in the United States for either party, you really haven't been caught up on your political science, where it's been clear for at least 10 years. There was a study, I think it was done at Princeton, where political scientists very methodically asked who sets the agenda of people in Congress. American government. Whose interests, whose priorities are represented in Congress? What do these members of Congress get excited about? What do they want to really push for? And they had examined that, and they found out that it has nothing to do, like zero statistically significant correlation between the interests, the articulated interests of the majority of the American people, which, by the way, in many cases is bipartisan. It's about cost of living, it's about jobs, it's about healthcare, it's about housing, it's about safety, all these things that doesn't show up in Congress. And if you look, where do the priorities of these people in Congress come from? Well, it's the think tanks, it's the lobbyists, it's the corporations, the billionaires, and there are many ways of funding think tanks, legislative initiatives, plain old lobbying, and of course, election campaigns through donations to candidates and parties. And this is especially true since Citizens United threw the floodgates of corruption wide open and allowed for this inflow of increasingly, well, first it was dark money, and now it is just like wide out in the open. It is just money that buys influence. And when the authors of this study had those numbers and they asked the members of Congress of both parties, do you have any comment on that? Do you think it's a problem that your priorities and the priorities of members of Congress in general do not reflect the wishes and the priorities of the American people? They got nothing. No. They didn't even, it didn't register with them how that would be problematic. They're the representatives, they're running the show, they know best. And yeah, they're listening to all kinds of input from all kinds of people, except that the majority of the American people are not among those to whom they listen. So if you think that the way politics works is that the will of the voters are done, or if you even just think that the voters are the ones who drive politics and set the agenda, not just was that never true, but it is especially no longer even remotely true today. But here's the other thing. If you are only talking about voters as an amorphous mass, if you're not looking at specific interests in society, how these interest groups are structured, how they assert their interests, how they make their voices heard, and how they shape party programs and agendas, and how they fund congressional and presidential campaigns, never, not to forget at the local level. Then you might be getting closer to being able to say, here lies responsibility. For instance, when it comes to Trump, when it comes to fascism, responsibility for establishing the fiction that immigrants are a problem, that immigration is making this country worse off, and that government needs to do something about it. To create this conviction that this is a policy priority that many people are willing to get behind. You could just say, oh yeah, that's racism. Well, yes, it is racism, but again, that is so very unspecific. Who pushes that and for what reason? There are many people, perhaps, for whom the racism is its own reward. They just want to be left to their own devices in the whites-only republic. But that's not 77 million people. And besides, although the Republican Party has been counting on that group, on the solid, minority of voters who vote with race, with white supremacy as their priority since Nixon. And the people who most appeal to this group had a growing share of influence within the Republican Party every year, more and more, since Nixon. But it is only now under Trump that this is the group in its various factions, be it the Roipers and straight up Nazis, the white replacement people, the libertarians who think that black people on welfare are what's ruining everything. All these different groups, variations on the theme, they're now running the Republican Party. It took a while to get to this point. But that's still not the voters in the abstract. And it is still not racists in the abstract, but rather it is organizations, groups of people who found each other and acted jointly as interest groups, as pressure groups, as social movement organizations, as media outlets over the years. They too did not do that in a vacuum, but they did that in a setting where right-wing propaganda, right-wing organizing, even right-wing research in universities was readily and lavishly funded by the same billionaires who bought themselves influence in the political system once they could after the end of campaign finance contribution limits. So, in other words, to put it more succinctly, if you're talking about the voters and you're not talking about capital and the owners of capital, the bourgeoisie, you're really posturing as radical and not wanting to let these 77 million people off the hook. And you're the one who is morally and politically the most serious about actually getting to fascism at its roots. No, but you're not talking about the roots. You're talking about the wild and strange flowers. If you're talking about the roots of fascism, you need to talk about capital, and you need to talk about the bourgeoisie. So, as with most other things, where I look at liberal theorizing and the liberal worldview, and I'm struck by just how odd touched it is with reality, it goes back to that liberal inability to see the forest of capitalism, but the trees of moralizing culture war. And of course, the ubiquitous obsession with individual conduct. If you're being nice or mean to people, so I sort of hoped, but on the other hand, I hope this, when Trump first popped onto the scene, when he came down that gilded elevator, I hoped so after the insurgency, and once again, now that the ethnic cleansing is in full swing, that maybe now, finally, Democrats will come to realize that their theory wasn't adequate to the situation. But oh no, nope, no, hasn't happened. And increasingly, I suspect, although as a historian, I'm loath to go there, that it may never happen. And as a historian, I'm absolutely aware that stuff will happen in a flash that nobody thought would ever be possible. Revolutions, collapses, radical change almost overnight. And then suddenly everything else follows along. But there is something here that is resilient about this complex of liberal delusions, the necessity of maintaining them. If you want to just look at who's pushing that, who's supplying the drug, so to speak, who's supplying the drug of delusion that they are all high on. Of course, you have the usual suspects, MSNBC or whatever they're called now, the New York Times. Then for the more centrist-minded folks, there's the Atlantic. There's no shortage of media outlets that reinforce that focus and that worldview of liberals on individual morals and the blind spot that lies with political and socioeconomic power and structures of power. So it's not enough to just say, let's get Trump out of the White House, let's restore democracy and the rule of law, and let's somehow put the genie of the 77 million bad people back in the bottle. That would be pointless. What needs to happen is, of course, to go after the organizations that have built fascism in this country. Whether it's the media outlets like Fox News, whether it's the organizations like Turning Point USA, whether it is the Republican Party in and of itself. Those must, of course, be banned, and the people who ran them locked up. They cannot be allowed to continue their work of undermining democracy, self-government, and the rule of law. If you're really serious about defending democracy, that is obvious. And I've said it for 10 years. The means at the disposal in a liberal democracy of dealing with members of the public who are not actually committed to a liberal democracy are insufficient. You don't actually deal with fascist propaganda by giving it the benefit of the doubt and saying, oh, it's all part of the marketplace of ideas. No, you do not do that. You regulate the marketplace of ideas and you tell them, you can't sell that stuff here. It is toxic. It will get people killed. So no, you can't open a market stand where you peddle your wares of racist, fascist, and in fact, frequently anti-Semitic propaganda. No, we won't have that because we've seen it before. There's no need to try it out and see if it really gets that bad. It happened in Germany in 1930. So, and since then, there is absolutely no reason to just wait around and see how bad it might get. You know how it's going to get. You saw how it got. So you have to go for the head of the whole enterprise, not just Trump, not just the figurehead, the people who really drive it. And you have to go for the root. But everything that's in between, or that underbrush of social movement activism, those are the people who, after the war in Germany, for instance, if they lose the leadership, and if they lose the funding, and if they see they lost the war, they're not going to change their minds, but they are going to go home and keep very, very quiet. The problem, of course, was that the Western allies left so many people in positions of power with money and influence who had nothing better to do in 1945 than to start rebuilding slowly and systematically. The Koch brothers come to mind. The people who are pushing race science come to mind. All of this was staying underground for years and years, just waiting for their chance, just slowly digging and chipping away. Democracy, egalitarianism, the commitment to human rights. And they endured the time when they had to look at communism for 40 years. They couldn't smash it. They endured the civil rights movement when suddenly those people had equal rights. And they worked to open cracks in the consensus and in the system, and to exploit them and to insert themselves and to widen the cracks until finally now they manage to break it. So the last final victim of this long-term project of the ruling class in the West, of this bourgeoisie, the owners of capital, to be done with equality and the rule of law and democracy. They weren't done when the Soviet Union was conventional. And they have been grumbling and griping about China, of course, which they still see as a communist aberration or abomination. But one of the biggest prizes was 1776, and that whole experiment in democracy and self-government established the United States proper. And now that has been done. So don't tell me about the voters, in other words. Cast your view a bit more precisely, if not to say widely. There are people who have guilt. There are people who have responsibility. There are people who must be held criminally liable. You know, the ICE agents, for instance, not just the ones who pull the trigger, also the ones who sign the paperwork and just stand around and collect a paycheck. All of them must be held accountable. No, but if you're looking for agency, if you're looking for authorship, if you're looking for people who are the driving force of that about 77 million, you're looking at billions and billions, not of people, but of dollars in the hands of a very, very small group of people. So.
여기서 특별시 수많은 기적을 일으켰지 가려진 별들 사이 떠오르는 특별 별난 것두성이 변함없지 번화하는 거리 거리거리마다 걸리적거리는 거 Clean it up, get back 검은 먼지를 텅텅 빈 깡통 Kick it Swerving, I'm speeding on Serpent Road Luxurious like common S-Class Best of the best on first class I'm up above the world, so high I'll be the shiny day and night They wonder how my spotlight is so bright Counting stars, 특별 별의 별난 놈 That's me 별의 in my work 빛깔 번쩍 Get class in the team 빛깔 번쩍 빛이 번쩍 또 빛나 힙합 스택 검진 막힌 발짝 툭줄나게 특기 내 집처럼 뜨나들지 특집 작업실은 안 부러워 득실거려 독보적인 특징 들이박 어둠 띄엄 보는 애들이 번쩍 빛나는 것들만 보면 달려버리시 너 빛나는 것 쪽이보다 빛나는 쪽이 되는 게 훨씬 폼짝이 편해 Shine like a diamond girl Swerving, I'm speeding on Super Road Luxurious like I'm in S-Class Best of the best on first class I'm up above the world so high I'll be the shining day and night They wonder how my spotlight is so bright Counting stars 별난 놈 That's me 별의 in my world 빛깔 번쩍 Get class in the team 빛깔 번쩍 빛이 번쩍 또 빛나는 star I feel like the brightest star 빛이 쏟아지는 밤 하늘을 바라보면 내 모습 수놓아져 있어 yeah 떨어지지 않고 한자리에서 거듭나게 stay hey yeah 빛날 광의 사람엔 그게 바로 우리 속의 말 We're special yeah Straight kiss 내 뒤에 팀은 특수 부대 스테이지 위 그 자체로 위가 특별 무대 관중들은 따로 필요 없지 축제 전체 따위 필요 없이 꽃빛 불때 Limited edition 이런 거 특별해져 투명하면 분명하게 바꾸거든 that's like you 눈에 띄는 tension 몰입하는 객소 네 글자 하나가 돼 여기 모든 것을 밝혀 Counting stars Feeling extra every day 빛깔
You are listening to the radio, I presume, or else you wouldn't be hearing me. The show is Climate Politics, the station KFCF 88.1 in Fresno, your local listener-supported radio station for all news that is unfit to be in the mainstream. Now, that song that you just heard, that was S-Class by Stray Kids. Another one of these K-pop bands that you probably haven't heard about unless you have children under the age of 16. There'll be more K-pop as this hour progresses, but first let's go back to talking about fascism. So what's happening this week in American fascism? Some people, and that includes virtually the entire media, the whole range from the centrist to the far right, seem to be saying that there is a retreat of ICE from Minneapolis. And now the question is, on the more liberal edge of the media spectrum, now we can think about rebuilding, dealing with the human and physical and economic and emotional damage done by ICE. To collect all the documentation, the cell phone videos, and the paperwork that people kept. And let's make sure that we keep all that, and eventually get justice. But this impression that ICE was beaten and that they were sent running by the proud and brave citizens of Minneapolis, that doesn't seem to match with what I'm hearing from activists on the ground. The people who actually were joining these rapid response teams, who were blowing their whistles and air horns to alert people to the presence of ICE, allow them to escape before they were captured and abducted. In fact, according to those groups, according to those activists, there has been barely a slowdown, and it is certainly not true that ICE has retreated. And one thing that is also underreported, if not ignored, in nationwide media outlets is that part of the withdrawal of ICE and CBP from Minneapolis was possible because Governor Walz ordered his police to target the protesters so that ICE doesn't have to do. So one of these heroes of the liberal resistance, Tim Walz, the governor, did in fact play the role, and I'm not overusing this word here, of the Quisling. He said, this police force, the sheriff's department of Minnesota that I control, I will put at your, not at your disposal, but I will use it to fulfill your purpose of making sure that these ICE agents can go about their business of ethnic cleansing undisturbed by these protesters. Did he do that in order to de-escalate and make sure that no more people get shot? I'm sorry, that no more white people get shot? Yeah, probably. But if the purpose of the protests had been to prevent ICE from abducting people in the first place, then it becomes pretty clear that Walz acted in a way that served to facilitate the ethnic cleansing by pulling the edges of the resistance to it, by pacifying, not by supporting the resistance, by turning the guns that answer to the state against the protesters and not against the federal thuggery that invaded. To celebrate that as a victory is pretty much propaganda, pretty much a lie, a big one at that. And it is stunning to see that happen at the same time as that Democratic Party is depicting itself as the only bulwark against fascism. So in a classical double or possibly triple bind, we're being told that Walz did it and the people of the resistance did it. ICE has been beaten. The naysayers who are saying, oh, but that's not enough, or that's not really what happened, they just can't stand that they're no longer in charge, that it's the Democrats really fighting the fight and doing the thing. So the critics who point out that what the liberal establishment is saying is actually a lie, is the opposite of what's true. The people who are calling out that lie then also get told to go away because you're part of the problem. Oh, you don't like what Democrats are doing? Well, evidently you're with Trump. Who knows whether you are you one of those people? Like, this is something I heard so much at the time of this fake drawdown when Homan took over. Aren't you the same people who wouldn't vote for Kamala Harris because you thought it was worth having fascism here so that you could just have a tantrum over whatever it was you're concerned with? Oh yeah, that genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Well, grow up. Now it's your fault that we have fascism, and you still want to criticize Democrats, the only ones who are standing against fascism, by saying that they're not actually standing against fascism. So I guess you're trumpets. So the whole mendacity of that narrative, where you criticize the Democrats from the left, so you criticize them for the things that they're actually doing, but you're refusing to go along with the pious declarations and just buy them at face value when they're so obviously not true. To be told that you're really just the Trumpers is that it has some chutzpah to it. It really does. What it also tells me is that the Democrats and the liberal political managerial class that are their main supportive base really don't see any existential need to change their tune. This kind of argument, this kind of cult-like defense of your own position, no matter how wrong, no matter how far from truth and facts, because it is morally superior, that kind of democratic liberal narrative functions as long as it allows the people who hold this view to exist in comfort, to keep doing what they're doing. They just want any critics to shut up and not get in the way of them enjoying whatever it is that they're enjoying. Their comfort, that derives from being a member of that professional managerial class. I don't want to focus again on the college professors. You know my opinion of my colleagues at Fresno State and their role in letting and holding open the doors for fascism. But you can look anywhere in these NGOs, in the media, in journalism, in the various organizations where people with liberal political opinions have small positions of power in jobs that are, of course, also mostly bankrolled by the very same billionaires, by the same capitalist class that is buying themselves a fascist United States in the first place. So these people are still comfortable enough to stick to their guns and keep telling the same old lies that they've been telling for the past 10 years, which is, again, tragic, really, because here's a group of people who, if you took them at their word, but if you thought that they meant the things they're saying about justice, about equality, about democracy and whatnot, that they should really be out in the streets and rioting now. If they haven't been in the past 10 years, now really would be the time. I mean, out in the streets and rioting, I don't mean show up once a week or more rarely for a No Kings protest in a mall parking lot somewhere at the edge of town where no one will see them, but they can go home and show off with the selfies they took and say, I did my part. Where were you? Oh, I guess you didn't vote for Harris because you thought she was a genocidal, cop-loving liberal. Well, enjoy the camps, because I went and I rallied at No Kings at the mall just outside of town right before happy hour. So I just as much as I think it's pointless to engage in moral condemnation of Trump voters, I also think it's pointless to engage in moral condemnation of liberals. And I see there's less there that you can appeal to, even, the better nature. Never mind that concept. But really, if you want to be rational about it, if you want to be analytical about it, if you look at the material interest reflected in that political ideology of liberalism, then it is clear that if ever MAGA and Trump really wanted to, quote unquote, put that liberal middle class out of its misery, that hasn't happened yet. And I don't know what it's going to look like when that happens. It seems like the war against the universities has raised the most visible bastions, those private elite universities. And it has come a long ways in all other schools, some of which have gone very far to the right. And of course, once Charlie Kirk was murdered, so many people lost their jobs because they expressed their feelings about that event in ways that were not compatible with the demands and requirements of the national government. So probably if you look under the hood, if you look under the surface, there's a lot of heads being held low, people who are just saying, well, we're going to get through this, just be quiet for now, don't emphasize the DEI so much. So that the universities at large have been demoralized, but the liberals who are sitting there still have their jobs. They haven't actually started requiring that universities dissolve all departments of ethnic studies, women's studies, gender studies, and African American or Hispanic or Latino or whatever studies in order to keep receiving federal funds for their students. Not yet, at any rate. If we're as much on the Hungarian path as I've been seeing and have been saying on the show for the last couple of years, of course that will be next. It will be a requirement not to have women's studies, ethnic studies, gender studies, etc., if you want students to attend your institution to receive federally funded student aid. That's going to be the lever that they have. And at that point, maybe some heads will roll in that comfortable class, but probably never enough to change the tune of the liberal intellectuals to something less self-serving, less self-defeating, and less detached from reality. But I thought it was important to say that if you've heard the narrative, we won, ICE tucked in their tail and ran out of Minneapolis, that is not, in fact, what happened. And this is based on people I have followed for years and years, first on Twitter, and then after that became Swastika under Elon Musk, then on Blue Sky, researchers, people with academic attachment, who have been researching fascism, who have been fighting the anti-fascist fight, who are on the ground in Minneapolis, who I trust when they say, it is a lie. ICE did not give up. ICE was not beaten back. It is an attempt by the liberal establishment to pacify what otherwise might have become a broader popular uprising against fascism, that they, the liberals, possibly might have lost control of. Something that they saw as a big danger during the Black Lives Matter. Now, of course, liberals expertly managed to put a damper on that movement and domesticate it and pacify it and split it But they managed to kill the anti-fascist movement in Minneapolis even quicker. So it's not my account of what actually happened there is not based on conspiracy. It's not based on some silly YouTube radical who's pulling things out of their sleeve. No, it's also based on, and for obvious reasons, I can't name the names here, but on personal contacts, people who I know, who my family knows, who are in Minneapolis, who had been on the front lines of the protests after George Floyd was murdered, who live right there in the part of town where the Black Lives Matter protests started and where the anti-ICE actions took place. And they know, and they tell us, and they share it with friends and family on Facebook. So I can't really I can't really name names here and name my sources, but I know for a fact that this notion that Minneapolis was liberated from ICE is a lie. And if you look past Minneapolis, if you look beyond that, throughout the country, from small cities to big, they wanted to make an example of Minneapolis. But they were not just in Minneapolis. There is ICE roaming every place in this country. They're hunting people and they're abducting people and they're locking them up in these disease-ridden death camps. And that is happening day in, day out. And that still needs to be stopped. Meanwhile, there is among the Democrats, the liberals, who have access to a mass audience in public, this theater going on. All I ever hear is the same stuff I've heard for 10 years. Look, now this thing or that thing is going to completely pull the rug from under the MAGA move. And oh, look, here's a fissure. Somebody is going to be speaking out, and then it all falls apart. And we don't even have to do anything about it. Or recently, when Pam Bondi spoke to a congressional committee investigating the Epstein files, and when Bondi had an aggressive response to the questions of Democrats that amounted to pretty much, what do you even want? Why do you hate the president who is actively making America great and wealthy again? The stock market is up. America is on top again. And what do you people want? Why do you have to keep inventing all these fake stories about the president being a pedophile or having been associated with ones? Why are you so vile? Why are you so evil? Is it something because Representative Raskin, of your religious or ethnic background, perhaps, you of all people, says Bondi, as a Jew, she didn't say that, but that's what she meant. You should care more about the stock market. Don't you people care about the stock market? And here you are talking about apps. So when you read the liberal account of what happened there, you might think, oh, Pam Bondi made a fool of herself. She demonstrated her incompetence and she had a meltdown. I saw that, and that's not what happened. What happened is that she had a polished, theatrical response to these Democrats, a response that was aggressive deliberately. It was derisive and undercutting the very legitimacy of Democrats in Congress, of congressional oversight, of the democratic process, and the irrelevance of truth and reason and evidence, because what is at stake in the Trump administration is a higher purpose. A great leader making a great nation even greater world than it has already always been. and will always remain, in spite of the best efforts, immigrants and the Jewish helpers who are undermining it at every step because they hate us and they want us to be poor, and that's how they want to govern us. And if you don't understand that worldview, and if you don't understand its danger, you might miss that what Bondi put on the stage there in Congress was a masterful performance. She did her job. She represented fascism pure and simple. It was not a meltdown. It was not a show of incompetence. If you tell that to your listeners, to your donors, to your audience, you're either lying to them or you're lying to yourself, or you're absolutely too far down the road of your own belief system to see how wrong you are. So the danger of fascists and the theatrical, moralistic, bumbling, fumbling response of Democrats, who suddenly, however, do grow a spike when it comes to sending the Minnesota Sheriff's Department to beat up protesters so that ICE doesn't have to do it, is something to behold. The Democrats can buckle and kowtow and nod and grin when it comes to dealing with fascists, but do the batons and the bats and the bludgeons ever come out and fly in the direction of the left and of protesters in the same breath that Democrats are saying, we're just small bean here, we can't do anything, what do you even want? We have no power. And then next thing you know, whether it's rhetorically or physically, they're wielding the bludgeon against the left, all the while saying, and it's, by the way, while I'm hitting you with this bludgeon here, it is your fault that we're having fascism, because I wouldn't have to do this if you hadn't voted for, well, nobody. If you had voted for Harris, if you hadn't worked against Harris, this wouldn't happen. It's the same logic, in fact, as Tom Homan. Yes, we wouldn't have to shoot protesters if they wouldn't protest. If you just let us do our ethnic cleansing in peace, we wouldn't have to use violence against anybody. The people just came along peacefully and didn't make our officers upset by refusing to go along with the program. Of course, we wouldn't have to shoot anybody. We might still do it just for fun, but hey, this is mostly on you. This is mostly your fault. So the logic of abusers, of people who believe in worldviews that stand in the way of reality and humanity, is of course not limited to the Republicans. You don't have to look all that long and all that closely, and you'll recognize it just as much in the other part of the American political class, the Democrats. Except usually the Republicans tend to be a little more ruthless and methodical, less compromising when it comes to applying the means of power at their disposal. So for the love of all that is good and holy, if you have any chance at all on a small or larger scale to resist ICE, to hinder ICE in engaging in their campaign of ethnic cleansing, continue to do that. It is far from over. The danger has not passed. It is only getting worse.
I was a ghost, I was alone. 두어진 길 속에 Given the throne, I didn't know how to believe I was the queen that I'm meant to be.
I lived two lives, tried to play both sides, but I couldn't find my own place. Caught a problem child, cause I got too wild, but now that's how I'm getting paid.
끝없이 on stage, I'm done hiding, now I'm shining like I'm born to be. We dreaming hard, we came so far, now Put these patterns all in the past now, and finally live like the girl they all see. No more hiding, I'll be shining like I'm born to be. 'Cause we are hunters, voices strong, and I know I believe we're going up, 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 it's our moment. You know together we're glowing, gonna be golden. Up, up, up with our voices, going to get just so woman, gonna be golden. Oh, I'm done hiding, now I'm shining like I'm born to be. Oh, our time, no fears, no lies, that's who we're born to be. You know we're gonna be golden, we're gonna be born to be glowing like every nanonori. You know that it's our time, no fears, no lies, that's who we're born to be.
Carl, sit down. Have a brandy with us.
To celebrate our leaving for America tomorrow.
Oh, thank you very much. I thought you would ask me, so I brought the good brandy. And the third glass.
At last the days came.
Well, Reichstag and I are speaking nothing but English now.
So we should feel at home when we get to America.
Very nice idea.
To America.
To America.
To America.
Liebchen, sweetness heart. What watch?
10 watts.
Such much?
You will get along beautifully in America.
Ha! What this tells me is that we must be coming up on 6 o'clock. We're almost done with this hour of climate politics. Dear listeners, that means it is time for me to say goodbye once again. The next time that climate politics is on the air, 2 weeks from now, on the 27th of February, 5 p.m., that Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, don't miss that. It will be the annual award ceremony where we give out the Smoggies, the golden inhaler for the worst votes and quotes when it comes to the climate in the Central Valley. And it is a tough, dense field of contenders once more this year. Local politicians, journalists, and public figures never disappoint us when it comes to the contest for who's the worst, who's done the worst, and who's said the worst things. So next time around, tune in. Catch the Smoggies here on KFCF 88.1 when it comes time again for climate politics. But for tonight, I'm Lars Maischak. I'm wishing you a good weekend and a pleasant rest of your evening. Goodbye and use less stuff.